Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Coggan.
So today we're talking about the Borg, seen in this last episode of Prodigy.
They're back.
Let sleeping Borgs lie. They are.
Interior, exterior, vinculum, and comparative. This is going to be quite a big one, guys. And we have already had an exclusive interview with Aaron Waltke, so we have some extra knowledge to throw at you. He'll say it better in his interview count tomorrow, but we also now know some things, which is wonderful. Thanks for joining us. And there are answers to questions we had yesterday on our review. So check out all the videos and see what you think. So Stuart, here's a Borg cube. First time we see it in a full shot. Thought?
Man, it looks good. I do like the design of it. I do like the cuts in it and the green glow. I think it's a very cool looking cube. It looks more advanced than some other cubes we've seen before.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. We did a really in-depth Borg ship comparison episode, and we looked at all the cubes in order, and that was really, really interesting. I still remember a lot of that stuff. So the original Borg cube was more random greeblies, then it became piping, then it became plating, then it became textured, This has an interesting vibe of all the above. It's mostly first contacty vibe with those large plates, but the interconnective inner bits feel very Voyagery, which I really like the green inner glows. First contact as a sway of glows, I think the green looks super good. But now I know that it's got a sphere, so that's worth pointing out. It's one of those cubes. But I really quite like the giant cutouts, which don't feel random, a la Voyager. They feel like structural and almost like leading to the sphere. Like they have a construction vibe versus a random vibe.
Yeah, it looks like a circuit board.
Yes.
Like all these things go to a certain path, yeah.
Yeah. So it's different just by making, and this is a bog standard cube design, like thematically, but they've made it different somehow. So good job. But then, of course, Stuart, the comparison with TNG, with First Contact, with Voyager CG, with Prodigy, and then with Picard. Now, the Borg, of course, evolved through time. Model making techniques evolved through time. CG evolved through time. Those are 1,000 caveats.
My thoughts. This is probably the best looking Borg cube we've got. It's very similar to the one in Picard with those pathways, those large swaths just cut out of it. It feels the same, that vibe wise there. But the inner glows are very reminiscent of Voyager and First Contact. The TNG one was honestly just like model sprues just glued together and to give that texturing. So
now it's interesting you say that because I do these research notes, but I don't actually look at them in the same way. Yeah, there are cutouts on the Picard one. I 1,000,000,000% assumed they had been removed as pieces to study. I didn't for it because there's obviously damaged parts. There's bits that they've deconstructed. They need force fields. I assumed it had been deconstructed. I would not have called for a second they were intentional, but now side by side, obviously they could be an angle which shows the same slices. But if you're retconning the non-said design cues, then okay.
Never got that sense that they were technology removed. I love that though. That's exactly what the Romulans would do. Yeah, it just seems like it's not powered down because those should be glowing green. Let's like in Prodigy if it was powered up. So,
but I would have thought though if the Picard Borg cube had a sphere, that sphere would have been removed and studied separately. Small note, but clearly doesn't have a sphere.
Not that we can see. It could be on the other side.
But I still prefer the Voyager one. I like the sporadic randomness versus the constructed, but I would honestly hybridize the two. But yeah, it looks very, very nice. And the way the plating is very similar to First Contact, and you can almost see the direct detail connections. Like your brain sees them, even if I can't point them out, how close they've vibed. Whereas the Picard one is not remotely feeling like the First Contact one, detail-wise. It's very its own thing, which is fine. But they're definitely pulling from the multiple iterations, which as they should.
One thing we got to point out too, though, is that the Borg evolve pretty quickly. If they assimilate a really advanced race, they're going to assume all this new technology and they're going to incorporate it with everything. So the Borg cubes evolving this much over this span of time makes perfect sense, honestly.
Well, not just that, but any cube could be any years old. So the TNG one could have been a 130-year-old cube, and versus the ones in Voyager where the Queen's now wanting to, that's their home system, the home quadrant. So there's reasons to. But I would be fine with the Borg cube being able to be built in like a week. Like just flat out and a control. So they could be building iterations and just like how people test on animals that have short life cycles to see how iterations will change over the equivalent of 500 life generations. If you can make cubes very quickly, then you can build 30 cubes in a month, whatever, and then boom, now you've got iterations, and they can keep testing prototype versions, and yeah. So there's infinite available for ability for variation here. It's just worth pointing out. But the interior, though, we are presented with, it's so big the Prostar can fly through, and while not a big ship, it is still in a similar vein as the Defiant sized, in a roughly the same ballpark. Obviously not proportionally, but like lengthwise. So it's still a ship that is flying through. Not something we've seen before in the Star Treks, except in the Voyager Experience, the 4D, where you get captured and Voyager flies in and pew-pews. What do you think about having this much flyable space?
Kind of like it, honestly. Makes it quite an interesting visual for sure. And Picard, we did see the Romulan ships go in and land, but it was more of a docking bay, like a shuttle bay almost, as opposed to this cavern.
They were flying to it rather than through it.
Borg ships are quite big, so I have no problem with there being like larger inner structures like this. And we've actually seen that in TNG, where they go to the railing and you see the rows of, and it's just this empty like corridor in between.
Well, I don't think the ship could fly through it without bashing the walls. Still not that.
Not in that one, not that corridor necessarily, but there could be various ones throughout the ship, right?
And obviously, in First Contact, that big internal open space, that certainly you could fly a ship round. Maybe you're stuck, but you could do it. Yeah, it also gives it a very city feel as well. Highways, etc. I mean, these Borg, as we see in every other Trek, can just beam. They don't necessarily need to walk between places, but they got highways. Also, a lot of spaces to fall, but highways everywhere.
That bottom picture looks very much like something out of Blade Runner or something like that. Some kind of future city.
Just a bit more creepy. And as you point out in our review, full on landing pad for a ship.
Seems like an odd choice for a Borg cube, but they do
it.
assimilate other ships, yeah, so.
Yeah, it's like aesthetic shouldn't even be a consideration in a Borg ship. But then you could have caveat, well, one species was assimilated by this one cube that really loved aesthetic, and suddenly they're shifting the internal structure. The Borg are tricky like that. But certainly, I would have liked if they'd said in the dialogue, we're going through the hangar subjunction. Like a sense of, this is not an average Borg cube segment. Because even 3 kilometers, like, there's not that much of this space in it. You're seeing a notable chunk of the cube, right? So I would like to have had a slight, like I said, hangar section, etc. But visually, really cool, and mostly Borg feeling, like the lights work, lighting works. The next shot, though, is other interiors. This is more the livable space. The rows are back, and again, on the top view, the big-ass two different structures, which for some reason need supports. They're not strong enough metal in a Borg cube. It's a plot point, so it's fine. And again, very city feeling. The way the lights are look like windows in high rises. Very specific vibe they've created there.
Yeah, this feels very reminiscent of what we saw in Picard when Picard was talking to Hugh, and you kind of had that thing about like those behind the alcoves. So very similar art style to Picard,
which does make sense. It's the latest thing we saw. I prefer Voyager's art style, but that's fine. And of course, this is when the trick of multiplication and CG became easier. In the older Treks, when a map painting, you don't want to have to draw 50,000 drones, but this is a copy and paste row, and you create the scale, so it's a very easy thing. Even in Voyager, they had so little rendering power. There's one shot where they do that, and it's not quite that. It's a lot of tricks to hide stuff. This is like, well, we can just stack them, and now we've got detail. It's fine. It reads of that sort of thing as Picard did. And we're going to jump back in a second. The vinculum we see. The vinculum is, of course, the central neural emitter generator thing that connects all the Borg. Actually has all of them inside it in some form as well. It's very, very important. It's back.
I was under the impression that there was maybe like 2 or 3 vinculums in a Borg cube, but apparently there's only the one, or one that's functioning maybe.
I mean, it's certainly said in dialogue in Voyager. It's the central vinculum. They presumably have spares that aren't active, redundancies, but it's meant to be a specific central, the middle, the
makes
nexus.
Sense.
Yeah.
It looks cool. It's a great visual. I love the glow as well. Like, again, it feels like the Queen's Chamber though in Picard. As soon as they walked into this, it's exactly the vibe that I got. So again, more Picard art department,
Which I also wondered if they were going to mention that. I don't know how they would, but they would say something or imply something
Well, we can
Queen's
assume
chamber.
that this might be a special ship for a queen, because it has
there's
this room, which looks like the queen's chamber, and there's also the sphere ship attached to it, right? So,
And if we're going by Picard logic to the nth degree, because the artifact we see, which is the Borg cube, isn't implied to be a overly special cube, it's just a cube, yet it has the Voyager-based technology that lets you transport across the galaxy in the Queen's chamber, which you can use without being a queen, sort of. I mean, maybe there'd been that room on this as well, and it's like they could have all beamed to Earth, and they never even knew it. Oh, when they found the Queen's chamber. But Stuart, let's compare directly with the vinculum as seen in Voyager. To it was introduced. Now, the vinculum in Voyager is larger than the one in this. So it's a bit larger. This felt a little bit small to me, but I mean, hey, they can refine. This is the Canon 3D model. This is how it looked. It's based on the real prop they built. Pretty darn close. Not identical, but pretty darn close.
yeah, I would say identical enough. But yes, there are obviously differences. And again, the caveat of they evolve their tech, it's fine. So, but I'm actually impressed that it's so close.
I wish it was lit nicer, because it looks like a black mess. Compared to, like, I've tried to light this one quite clean and it kind of pops in a better way. It's fine, it's, yeah, close enough, but I mean, not people could do a sort of comparative. What a great design, though, for a vinculum. So we can double back then. So, yeah, you were saying a minute ago, yes, this is the Borg alcove. At the bottom is a sort of a similar view that I found, and then the Picard version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the Picard one, to me, the way the lights were portrayed seemed very Tron-like.
Yes.
Like Tron
Clearly.
glow lines. Yeah. And that's exactly the vibe I got with the Prodigy episode as well. More of a refinement. Like it seems like, yeah, their tech is just advancing and it's becoming more streamlined. So yeah, I think there's very, very similar visual cues here for sure.
And the interesting caveat being that normally you'd associate these circles being filled with a green, lightning-y vibe, but perfect. Yeah, exactly. And that's a very iconic art design right from the first time we see them. However, both of these Borg cubes, the bit we're seeing, are deactivated. In Vesta both worlds, I believe they still have them active, even though they just didn't turn them off on the set because they had life to the set. So in this Picard, I associate them with these weird circle lights. I kind of wish they'd been with the active, because they're so different to the Voyager vibe alcoves. I think that would have been good to bring them together. But they are not identical to the Picard ones, the Prodigy. They are inspired, clearly, but not the same.
Yeah, they are quite different. I didn't realize that. I mean, just visually, my mind said those are the same, if not similar, to the Picard ones. But when you side by side them, which that's what Trekyards does, quite obvious the differences. So,
but you can tell they're not Voyager-based alcoves; they're Picard-based. That's what they've looked at. They've not looked at Voyager, but also don't get close enough to see the small details. The next view, though, is again. Now we didn't see that much of the inner cube because they redress sets versus building new big things. But there's a sequence where, and it's in the same sequence where these alcoves are a wall of alcoves and just a wall, and you see these many layers of corridors, etc. So is that a similar vibe? And it's not quite the same, obviously, but it's as close I could get.
This seems like the one on the bottom here literally would be on the bottom of the cube. So it wouldn't have the, and just like different stacks of layers of bridges and stuff. But this one seems like one of the lowest ones, yeah. It's kind of the vibe that I get.
Yeah. But the next view, though, is very interesting. This is the evolution of interiors from TNG, First Contact, Voyager, Prodigy, and Picard. Now, obviously, in First Contact, caveats is a dream, vision, take pinch of salt, but we have it, it was built, here you go. And Voyager was specifically her talking to the believe that's the vinculum in the middle. So again, not exactly an average room, but these are examples of the art design saying, Borg cube, big interior. So these are what we're reflecting from the different styles as time has passed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes from like a very industrial look to the First Contact one seems almost like something you'd see in the motion picture inside V'ger, because it's organic, it's curved, it's not straight lines like we're used to with the Borg. Voyager, again, seems busy and cluttered a little bit. And yeah, the vinculum there, quite huge. But then you look at Prodigy and you see the thing above the landing pad. It almost looks like that could be a vinculum in and of itself, like a large one. I know it's not, obviously, but and yeah, this has a more urban cityscape feel to it with the Prodigy one. and then Picard feels again more like a factory or some kind of warehouse. So they all have their different kind of feels, you can see an evolution here. The only one, the odd man out, is First Contact. And again, as you said, you caveat that with it was a dream or whatever.
And also, it's implied it's the literal center of the cube. It's a weird room in the middle.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not.
You think that's where the vinculum would be, though?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Janeway could be. Yeah, Janeway could be in the curved middle bit, and now it's a square.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'd buy that. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I'd say about this is that I do not see an evolution here. There's no logical link from one to the next. There's just different people doing different things. But I love your summary was insane. I can't say it better. They all have a vibe. They're all entirely different. But you put them together, it's like, yeah, okay. Borg be weird. That's the summary, I think.
You gotta wonder too if the Borg interiors are all uniform or if there are different sections. Like the one on the left, or the TNG one, almost feels like an engineering type section.
Yeah.
And then you got your alcoves and stuff.
In theory, they walk to the bit where the assimilation chamber was. So maybe that's a assimilation zone. And then
do they have assimilation free zones on the cube? I don't know.
Happy hour
no assimilations here.
God, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. Maturation chambers need to be somewhere, apparently. And then First Contact, obviously, unique room, vinculum, unique room. So yeah, I mean, that would be kind of cool if they all were just, especially if you want to be very, very, very minutiae about it. Say for a second that this is all one cube, right? But you got to think. I don't know how many assimilated Borg. Let's say 50,000. That feels about right. 50,000 Borg. Well, they're going to be from across the galaxy, all different races, all different sizes, all different everything. So you could happily say that, okay, we're going to throw 3,000 humanoids in TNG segment because that's breathable air. That just it works best for them, right? But
like a zoo.
Sure, yeah, or just cages. The First Contact, or Picard, sorry, that is a zone that needs life forms that need a bit more power draw from their regeneration chambers because their biology needs more upkeep, and so they need a higher end version of the chamber. Hence they look different. Hence the different zone. Hence you put them all in one place. Efficient, neat, boom. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that, and it does feel like a behind the scenes at a zoo. Different habitats, although cage style, but and we saw the rhino type guy Borg in this episode as well, much larger, which I love seeing the variation because they assimilate species from everywhere. So that was a nice added touch. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there needs to be a customs area because that rhino ain't recharging himself in the 6'2" square or rectangles. So he's got to have a custom area.
Exactly. I never really thought about that, but that makes perfect sense.
Revelations, Stuart. I know that's obviously in canon. We're making some fun assumptions and deductions here, but hey, that's what we do here. We put it all together. We analyze. We break down. We have to find a solution because this isn't just 5 designers designing 5 things. It's the Borg, right? They're adding a new chapter to this Borg, but it's all got to connect as well. So that's our challenge, Stuart.
Well, it's fun to speculate and talk. We get so much insight from these discussions, like actually seeing these things side by side and having a discussion, and it's actually very fun and interesting. So I really appreciate that, and hopefully you guys do too. Comment down below, put in your input, and if you want to join us for lives where we talk about this kind of thing, this is the home for all Trekkies. We're very welcoming. We love everybody. We want you to be a Trekyardian, so subscribe to the channel. And please join us for those lives. And hit that like. Hit the thumbs up. We appreciate that.
And go check our interview tomorrow with Aaron Waltke, lead writer from Star Trek Prodigy. You know, that's a fancy sound title. I mean, he's probably fancy. I don't know. He has answers.
Nice guy.
I love how we didn't even give the answers for the interview, so we kept them all fresh for the interview tomorrow. Haha! Yay for us. We had different things to talk about. We should call him again and say, hey, is your Borg cube the rhino section of the... Anyway. I just have... Anyway, yes, and support us directly if you can via Patreon, PayPal, join the channel on YouTube, which is monthly, super chatting on any live, or super thanks on any video, buy a shirt, or just say hi in the comments, because that helps analytics as well. Lots of great ways. Thank you in advance.
So until next time, he is Commander Cockings.
He's Captain Foley.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.